Okay, so picture this. The name Musashikoyama was created for practical reasons. In 1923, the Meguro-Kamata Electric Railway, the company that would eventually become the Tokyu-Meguro Line, built a station here. They called it Koyama, a simple name taken directly from the local area. But there was a problem. A station with the same name already existed elsewhere in Japan. So the following year, the name was changed. The old provincial name Musashi was added to the front, and the station became Musashikoyama. That, according to the common explanation, is where the name came from, a practical solution to avoid confusion. The name itself has no particular romance. But what happened under that name was not accidental. This area has been a place where people passed through since the Edo period. The reason is Meguro Fudosan. Formerly known as Ryusenji Temple, Meguro Fudosan was one of the most popular pilgrimage sites in Edo, a place where ordinary townspeople came to pray for good fortune, good health, a good harvest. Walking west from the center of Edo, travelers would branch off from the Nakahara Kaido, one of the major highways of the era, onto a smaller path leading toward the temple. That path ran through what is now Musashikoyama. A pilgrimage road means people passing through, and where people pass through, things appear. Tea houses, rest stops, small stalls selling food. The area around Musashikoyama had this kind of gentle commercial presence, growing along the pilgrimage route. But the neighborhood itself was still a farming village. Fields, bamboo groves, stands of trees. The Shinagawa irrigation canal ran through the land, feeding the crops. The records describe a settlement of around 66 households, a small hamlet, quiet and self-contained, at the edge of the Musashi Highlands. People from Edo walked through, rested, and walked on. That was the relationship between the city and this place for most of the Edo period. The transformation came with the railway. 1923 was a pivotal year for Musashikoyama, and not for one reason, but two. The first was the railway. In March of that year, the Meguro-Kamata Electric Railway opened the line between Meguro and Kamata. Koyama Station was part of that opening. For the first time, this farming village had a direct connection to the city. The second was the Great Kanto earthquake. September 1st, 1923, magnitude 7.9. The earthquake triggered massive fires across Tokyo's densely packed wooden neighborhoods. Over 100,000 people died. Enormous numbers of people lost their homes. And those people had to go somewhere. A station that had just opened months earlier on the western edge of the city, with cheap land and relatively easy access, Musashikoyama became one of the places where displaced people went. The small hamlet of 66 households was suddenly receiving a wave of earthquake survivors and entrepreneurs looking for somewhere to start again. The village became a town. The pilgrimage road, which had carried worshippers for centuries, was now carrying residents and shopkeepers. Around the station, a commercial district began to take shape. Food stalls, daily goods, clothing, the basic necessities that a growing residential neighborhood requires. That cluster of shops around the station was the beginning of what would later become Musashikoyama Palm, May 25th, 1945. During World War II, American air raids had been systematically targeting Japanese cities. On this night, the area of Tokyo, around Shinagawa and Meguro, was hit. The shopping district of Musashikoyama was destroyed entirely. Everything that had been built since the earthquake, the shops, the stalls, the accumulated commercial life of 2 decades, burned. 22 years of building gone in a single night. But 2 years later, in 1947, the shopping association reformed in the ruins. The surviving merchants gathered. They decided to start again. And if they were going to rebuild, they wanted to build something better than what had existed before. The idea they came up with was a roof. If there was a roof over the shopping street, customers could come in any weather. Rain, wind, summer heat, none of it would matter. The whole street would become a sheltered space, usable every day of the year, regardless of conditions. At the time, nothing like this existed in Japan at scale. In 1956, the first section of the Musashikoyama shopping arcade was completed, 470 meters of covered walkway, Japan's first large-scale shopping arcade. The ruins had produced something new, something that had never existed before in this country. The arcade was later given the name Palm. The name comes from 2 parts. The word pal, borrowed from English, used here to mean friend, and mu, the first syllable of Musashikoyama, a place where you meet good friends, a place for connection. That was the idea behind the name. The arcade was extended over the following decades. Today, Palm runs for approximately 800 meters, one of the longest shopping arcades in Tokyo, fully covered from one end to the other. On a rainy day, you can walk the entire length without getting wet. That practical advantage, born from the original idea of the 1947 merchants, is still one of the reasons the street remains well loved today. During Japan's high-growth period, in the 1950s and 60s, Musashikoyama reached its peak. The surrounding residential areas expanded rapidly. Families moved in. Daily shopping meant Palm. That pattern continued for decades. The arcade as the kitchen of the neighborhood, the infrastructure of daily life. July 2nd, 2006. The Tokyo-Meguro line went underground at Musashikoyama. Until that point, the tracks ran at surface level through the neighborhood. The railway line physically divided the area, cutting north from south. And where the tracks crossed the roads, there were railroad crossings that residents called Akazu no Fumikiri, crossings that never open. During rush hour, the crossing gates could be down for 40 or 50 minutes out of every hour. The 2006 underground construction eliminated 16 of those crossings at once. The neighborhood connected. The barrier that had separated north and south for decades disappeared, and the underground conversion allowed Musashikoyama to be integrated into the wider Tokyo subway network, with through service to the Tokyo Metro Namboku line and the Toei Mita line. From Musashikoyama, you could now reach central business districts without transferring. Musashikoyama became convenient. When a place becomes convenient, people come. When people come, property values rise. When property values rise, development follows. In 2019, a 41-story tower condominium was completed in front of Musashikoyama Station. In 2021, a second tower followed. A third development is currently underway, with a 39-story building scheduled for completion in 2033. On the site that was once a hamlet of 66 households, buildings over 100 meters tall are now rising. The new residents who have moved into the towers are, in many cases, different from the people who have lived here for generations. Dual-income households, high earners, young families, drawn by the commute times that the underground line made possible. They shop at Palm. A new purchasing demographic has arrived. But longtime residents have concerns. The narrow back alleys that gave the neighborhood its texture are being cleared. Old drinking establishments that survived the air raids and the post-war reconstruction are being demolished. The landscape is becoming cleaner, more uniform, more like every other redeveloped station area in Tokyo. In 2024, Musashikoyama was ranked first among neighborhoods showing the fastest rise in desirability for renters, a sign of success. But around the same time, the neighborhood also began appearing on lists of places people no longer want to live, specifically because of the loss of its everyday, unpretentious character. This is a pattern that should sound familiar. Kichijoji once went through something similar. A neighborhood builds a reputation. The reputation drives up rents. The rents push out the things that built the reputation. The cycle runs. Musashikoyama is in that cycle now. Walk through the arcade and you can see both sides of it. The long-established butcher, open for decades in the same spot. The fishmonger who has been here since before the towers existed. The individual shops that have been the fabric of this street for generations. And beside them, the cafes and smoothie bars and curated boutiques that have opened to serve the residents of the buildings overhead. The same roof, two different neighborhoods living under it. In 1956, a roof was raised over the ruins. Nobody had built anything like it before in Japan. The people who had watched their street burn in 1945 built something larger and more durable in its place. That act of reconstruction produced, almost incidentally, a first. In 2006, the tracks went underground. The crossings that had divided the neighborhood disappeared, and the convenience that followed brought the towers, and the towers brought new people, and the new people are still arriving. The arcade that was built from ruins is now shared between the people who rebuilt it and the people who came because of what was built. Musashikoyama is still being made. If you made it this far, thank you. If you want to see more stories like this, from the parts of Japan that don't make it into the travel guides, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.